All right, I have Karl here today. Thank you so much for your willingness to share your story and your recovery experience.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. I guess a good place to start is when I was right out of high school, and I ended up meeting this girl, and we were just together for a couple hours in a park and kind of walked around and did some stuff. And a little before we departed, she mentioned that she had just gotten over mono. And I remember when I heard that my heart kind of sank. I'm like, uh-oh. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. And sure enough, I don't know, a month or two later, I had gotten mono, and I just moved out of my house, and um, I was so sick, I couldn't do anything, and so I had to move back home into an empty bedroom, and my mom took care of me, fed me breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, and I basically just laid on the floor for it was either a month or 2 months. I don't remember, but really sick. And I remember going to a few doctors, and they actually thought I had spinal meningitis because I was so sick. And so I never really got a real diagnosis. And so when I got better, I ended up moving back into my place, but I would try to or attempt to go to college every semester, and I couldn't stick with it. And I'd be within a couple of weeks, a couple of months or whatever, I couldn't follow up with the homework and do what needed, to be done to complete my studies. So I would just keep dropping out. And that happened at least for a couple of years. And, the doctors would just say, well, obviously you don't have mono because you can only get mono once. So again, no answers. And even though we highly suspected it was mono. So I ended up getting a little better, and then I ended up uh, getting being able to get a little more serious with life. I got a part-time job. I went back to college and got a girlfriend and did all that stuff. And then the last semester of college, I ended up getting really sick, and I had to drop out of that semester. Couldn't work for 6 weeks, and went to all these doctors. I mean, five or six, like, different doctors, clinics, whatever. And they did all this blood work, and, nobody could find anything. So I'm thinking, okay, I know I'm not crazy. I mean, if I was crazy, I think I would at least kind of know it, but it's like, no, this is physical, you know? And so a friend of mine, she referred me to this doctor, and this was like a year later, and I went to go see him, and he did the Epstein-Barr panel, and it was off the charts. And so it goes, yeah. So you have Epstein-Barr, which is, you know, basically kind of mono. And I said, okay, well, what can you do about it? Or what can we do about it? He goes, well, I can give you some B12 shots. That's about it. I go, okay. So I tried them and, didn't really help. The one thing that helped more than anything is the sauna. I would go once a week to this place to do a sauna, and the next day I would feel better. So I knew there was something that I could do that could make me feel better. So that gave me some hope. Um, and then we ended up moving to New York City, and I was referred through the Chronic Fatigue Association after talking to somebody, this doctor in New York City, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. He was a young MD that was kind of progressive with um, alternative therapies like vitamin C IVs and things like that. So I started seeing him, and I started feeling better. He had me on supplements, the IVs. Trying to remember what else he did, but it was a lot of different types of things. And I'd say within 3 or 4 months, I started feeling better to where I can almost live a normal life. And I was working and all that. And I think the insurance stopped paying at some point, which I kind of suspected. And, I wasn't, we were just kind of struggling by, living in New York City. We just didn't have a lot of spendable cash. So I couldn't justify paying it. It's like, I can't afford that. And so after a few months, I ended up kind of going back to the same type of thing. So it was kind of a low grade fatigue that would spike sometimes, but wouldn't last as long. Maybe a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, I would be really bad. And then I would just kind of feel maybe, you know, 50% or 40%. So I would just be kind of going through life feeling tired, dragging. Um, and I just kind of thought, well, I have no choice. It's kind of what I have to do. Right? I
Mhm.
mean, I was too young to like go on disability and they didn't know what I had. So it's not like I even had a real diagnosis. I guess chronic fatigue was the diagnosis back then, but you know, that didn't really get you anything. So, so I just kind of fumbled through and I ended up getting a divorce. I have to admit that my health was a factor because I just didn't have energy to do everything. It's all I can do to keep my job and and just kind of hold myself together. And then I ended up seeing. I think we moved to Dallas. I ended up seeing more doctors along the way, and kind of the same type of doctors that were willing to do alternative type stuff. And that helped me. I mean, at least I was still able to function. Um, I'm grateful for the fact that I've always been able to work and support myself no matter how sick I've been. Never really had to go on disability for any kind of length of time. And I've had money issues, of course, sometimes, but have always been able to work through them. So I'm grateful for that. So, um, and then I think there were a couple things that, oh, I might jump around a little bit now, but so I started thinking back on my work history, my health history at some point, and I noticed that I just had all these weird things happen to me. Um, and I remember I took a trip to Brazil, and I had some weird infection, bacterial infection, and they couldn't figure it out, and it took like months. Come to find out, it wasn't really an infection, and then. Um, I remember like when I was in high school, junior high school, I was taking a Spanish class, and the teacher would jump around to people and ask them questions in Spanish, and it would always startle me. And I would turn like beet red, and it was very embarrassing, I think after a year I ended up growing out of it, or a year and a half or something. But it was never explained. You're like, what is that? I had to stop drinking milk when I was 12 because my stomach would just get so bad. And I remember telling my mom, I can't drink milk anymore. And it just turns my stomach and I get diarrhea. And she goes, oh, don't be silly. She goes, don't be ridiculous. And so, just all these unexplained type weird things that would happen to me throughout my life. And it was just always unexplained. So in my early 40s, I ended up meeting somebody that played baseball, like competitive baseball. I think it was my girlfriend's best friend's boyfriend or something like that. And I used to play baseball as a kid. I was pretty competitive and I loved it, but I stopped playing for 20 years. And so I learned more about that and got back into baseball and started playing baseball and was able to handle it okay. And then a friend of mine referred me to this doctor that does NATE, which is neuropod allergy elimination technique. And keep in mind, we still had no idea what I had, but this was suggested to me to try, and it's basically at that time there would be all these vials of all these different types of substances, and you would take a vial in your hand, and the practitioner, typically was a chiropractor, would do certain things and rub up and down your spine. And then there were other more advanced techniques as time went on that she used, Dr. Ann Knight. And I noticed I would feel better. So I just started going to her, and I would see her, one, two, three times a week, whatever I could do. And we would pick something, or she would test me to see what was affecting me. Um, so it seemed like, okay, I have all these reactions, I have all these allergies to these things. So let's just go one by one and clean them up. And so that's what I did. So it was a very long-term process. Sometimes I had insurance that paid. Sometimes she just said, Karl, don't worry about it. Um, and I ended up seeing her for years. And if it wasn't for Anne, I mean, I don't think I would be alive. I mean, she just kept me going. And again, still we had kind of no idea what we were dealing with. But whenever I got sick, whenever I didn't feel good, anything that happened to me, I would go to her and she would treat me. And 95% of the time I'd feel better. Uh, then I started having gut issues. And this was maybe, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And is that long? Yeah, probably. Okay, yeah. And I took this trip up to Vancouver Island, some kind of seminar I went to for like 3 days. And I remember they had kind of a placement of all these types of fishes, a lot of salmon. And it was all like on this huge buffet table. And I'm looking at it and going, it's probably not a good idea to eat this stuff. But man, it looks so good. And so I ended up having some. And then I got diarrhea like the next day. And it didn't go away every single day. And I'm just like, what is this? And so that was the beginning of my gut issues. And I cannot tell you how many protocols and things that I tried to do. I read books, I would do stuff on my own. Maybe 30, 40% of the time I would get better, like almost completely better. And then something would happen and my stomach would turn for a half a day, or I'd go to a restaurant and then it's right back to the same old thing. So, I spent a lot of money um, on trying to find, what was wrong, and just never was able to find, um, the right path. There was one doctor that I saw, a Canadian doctor that um, was pretty good for the most part, but again, had nothing. We didn't know anything about MCAS or what it was about. But my gut was, semi-normal for about a year and a half. So I was pretty grateful for that. So um, then um, trying to think. You can edit this, right?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I mean, I think I mean, I just want to reflect so far. I just appreciate you sharing that you have found all these little pieces of the puzzle along the way, right? Like you've been dealing with these issues for a long, long time, and you've just kind of kept pushing and kept persevering. I know there's a lot of people out there who are in a place where they feel like, well, I've tried everything and nothing works, right? That's something that we hear a lot. And I think you're just a great example of someone that has, like, even when you feel like you've tried everything, you've just kept pushing forward, and you have found little pieces along the way that have just been like, okay, well, this helped this and this helped this. Like you just kept going and kept pushing and kept finding more people to help you, and just never gave up. So yeah, maybe we can kind of get into like the last few years and just kind of the health situation that led you to reaching out to whole body healing.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, looking maybe during the pandemic, uh, yeah, a good friend of mine, actually, she was my best like female friend in high school. Um, I had gotten back in touch with her. She lives up in Seattle, and this was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And she talked about an experience where she had went into this lake or river or something near her house to get her dog. I guess her dog had gone into the water, and how I guess the lake or whatever was polluted and made her sick. So that was the first time I heard about MCAS because she introduced me to it. And I would listen to her and it's like, some of that sounds very relatable to me, but at the same time, I mean, she was like really, really sick. Um, to this day, she's doing better, but she has, had a number of operations. She has like a team of people that she works with and is on, heavy medications and that type of thing. And she has to be careful for a lot of reasons. Um, so she's a lot worse off than me. And so during the pandemic, I didn't work for a while. I was able to take some time off from work, and I started doing some research, and I came to the conclusion that I probably had histamine intolerance. And then I started, learning more about MCAS, and I'm like, um, I think there's something here. So I end up finding there's this one practitioner I was working with. She's in Arizona, and she actually is familiar with MCAS and works with people that has it and stuff. And I talked to her, but she didn't believe I had it. So I said, "Well, can you test me anyways?" And she goes, "Yeah." So we did a tryptase test. So I had this heavy carb meal, and then I went to the lab, and then they took my blood, and sure enough, my tryptase was high. And so that was the first indication in my whole life that, okay, I have a positive, test result saying that I probably have, MCAS or histamine intolerance or something to that effect. And this was just, a couple years ago. So that really gave me hope. So I started doing more research and, started learning about mold. Again, something I never really took seriously. And I know that my place in LA was moldy, and especially in the winter, I would get bad symptoms. So, so I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I ended up seeing another doctor who wrote a book, Mast Cells Unite. She had me on a lot of detox stuff, but it was my gut that was bothering me. After a couple months, I just got frustrated with her because I said, I want to focus on my gut because that's really what's bothering me. And so I ended up just stopped seeing her and tried this other gut protocol. Didn't really work, but kept me regular. And I was just kind of in between practitioners when I came across your information. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. So I watched your presentation and I was very impressed, I have to admit, because, of all the knowledge that I've had over the years, um, about immune issues and all that stuff. I said, okay, this woman knows what she's talking about. This might be worth doing. It seems very practical and it's reasonably priced, and the whole program makes sense to me. So I thought I'd give it a shot. So I was, I had one or two other practitioners in mind to work with, but I didn't have 100% confidence in them. And so I started seeing you in your program, and you know, the the one thing that was amazing to me was, the soup thing, the GAPS protocol.
Mhm.
And I'd been on GAPS before, but I don't remember how long I stayed on it or if I was on it 100% or if I just did it partly. Um, but you have it down in a very systematic way in different stages and stuff. And I always believed that diet was huge. But it's so difficult because we get so many conflicting information on, the best diet for our situation. And so I started going on the soups diet. And within a couple days, I had noticed that I had gotten really emotional over something. I think I was thinking about my mom for like just a split second and got a little emotional. And I started tapping.
Mhm.
And I just started doing this.
Mhm.
And the nervousness or the emotional feeling went away immediately. And I was just like, whoa, this is amazing. And so getting back to the nervous system part, again, a part of the equation that I've always left out. I always thought it was still a little woo-woo to me. Didn't buy into it 100%. I think I had bought a couple modules or had done a little bit of research in it, but I couldn't get into it. Didn't have the faith to do it. Um, didn't understand it that well. But that was the one incident that convinced me that, okay, this is a huge missing part of the pie. Um, so so I've been, working on that, with the meditations and the vagus nerve exercises and the trauma release exercises. Not doing them as much as I probably should and as regularly. I travel a lot for my job and personally, so it makes it hard. But um, I do know that um, when I'm feeling anxious or have some kind of emotions going on or low grade type anxiety that, I have tools now that I can use to help kind of get that out. And it's usually when I lay down for bed at night or I start eating a meal are the times that I feel it. And um, so after a very short time in your program, once I kind of figured that out and started doing some of this nervous system stuff, I mean, Um, I think even after just that little tapping, I was feeling better immediately and was doing pretty well. And then I had a little setback. I decided to clean my basement. And and that night I had gotten some heart palpitations and some anxiety for a couple hours. And then I was okay. And then a couple days later, when I went to bed, I ended up getting really bad heart palpitations. So, I had this reaction to all the dust and stuff down there. I probably wasn't equipped as well as I should have been. So that was, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago. So I've had a little bit of a setback, um, but I'm still going pretty strong. Maybe even better in some ways because I've started to work out. I lost a lot of weight when I was on just the soups protocol, and now I'm, starting to eat cheese, which I love, and of course a lot of meat and guilt-free type food that I can just eat as much as I want if I'm feeling it. And so I put some weight back on, so maybe 7, 8 pounds. And I have a pretty brutal workout protocol. Not brutal, but I'm like today I do weights and I have a band system I do a couple of times a week. I do intervals on a track on Sunday. I'm playing baseball Saturdays. Um, I also have this stretching exercise routine. So basically, from Friday through Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm doing something physical. And then Monday through Wednesday, I'm working. So I'm an attendant. So, so I'm able to handle this like pretty, you know, rough schedule, even for a healthy person to, be flying all over the place, 3 days a week and then, working out on these free days. And also traveling a lot on my 3 days off. So, I'm able to do that. And if I have to pace myself, I will. If I have to take a nap, I'll take a nap. But in the past, whenever I've tried any kind of workout protocol, within a week, 2 weeks, a month at the most, something would happen. I would get major sinus cold, or my body would tell me in some way that you can't handle this. You can't do this. And so I would stop. So so now I'm able to handle it. So that's really exciting. So I'm just seeing myself getting better and better. Um, I think my 6 months are pretty much up now, and I'm going to get on the alumni program because I realize that I still have some work to do. I think at first I was thinking this would be a fairly quick type, thing, and of course now I'm more realistic. Realize that I'm gonna have setbacks. As you said, it takes most people around 2 years, and if you've had something for all your life, what's 2 years? It's nothing. So I've been able to kind of shift my mindset and realize, okay, I'm going to continue to need to work on things and will need assistance. So I'm excited to get in your alumni program and, continue moving forward. So
Oh
thank
gosh. Oh, it just makes me so happy, Karl, to just hear. I mean, I knew about all your progress obviously from our sessions, but just hearing it all encapsulated like that just warms my heart. It makes me so happy. So it sounds like you feel like really dedicating yourself to going through the intro gaps, going through the soup protocol, really doing that deep gut healing in combination with all the nervous system work is kind of what was the formula for you that got you to where you are. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of myself, having anxious thoughts or being nervous. Even in the past, for the most part, I didn't really have that. Maybe when I went through that phase where I was, flushing, I did. But other than that, so whenever I heard, nervous system stuff, I just kind of like, come on. You know, mentally, I'm fine, and I knew that. But the nervous system now, I realize that it's a separate party, so to speak. And if you deal with something mentally fine, it doesn't mean that your nervous system's going to. And I never understood that until recently. So that makes sense. So because our nervous system is going to store, all that stuff and trauma we've gone through. And of course, now that I do have this kind of low grade anxiety here and there, which I think it's my body detoxing now. I think my body feels comfortable enough to where it can start getting that trauma out of the fat cells. And
Yeah.
but it took a while. It didn't happen right away. I had to kind of get to a certain level of understanding before that can start. So I'm assuming that that's probably what's going on. And so yeah, so it's exciting that I have tools now and have so much more knowledge about what's going on with my illness. And I really see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though before I would never give up or quit, but I didn't know where I was going, you know. And now at least I have a um, direction and support. So yeah, so I'm very, very excited and very, very thankful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love that you share that because I think there are a lot of other people out there that, have been able to really like power through any bad things or stressful things that have happened to them in their life, and they've been like, no, I've coped fine. I'm fine. Like I don't have anxiety. I don't have depression. I'm fine. And you just really have been able to tune in and discover like, oh, maybe there's actually a lot more going on under the surface than I ever consciously realized before. And this may really have been contributing to my health issues. So I just think it's so insightful that you've been able to recognize that. And even though you felt a little skeptical at first, like maybe this is kind of woo, you recognize kind of the neuroscience base of a lot of this stuff and realize that it's actually been very, very helpful. So I appreciate you
Yeah,
sharing that perspective.
yeah, absolutely, big time. Um, so yeah, so now it's just, and then, the other thing that I feel blessed about is I've been able to make this work with my lifestyle. So I'm thinking, how am I going to stick to this diet when I'm traveling, at least 3 days a week and working and somehow I was able to make it work. I was able to cook at home and, put them in freezer bags and warm up the food on the airplane. And then when my diet opened up a little bit, I'd go down and have like the buffet breakfasts. I have the eggs and, the bacon and the sausage, and my body handles that fine. And then, um, so everything else in my food bag. And I've been able to make it work. Um, and it's funny because this is eating this way is something that I've wanted to do my whole life. And I think I've tried to do my whole life. Um, but knowledge changes and shifts. And 30 years ago, what I thought was healthy, wasn't. And plus not knowing what I was dealing with health wise. So finally, I'm eating a diet that is so wholesome and healthy, and it's also helping me, get better. So I'm really just, you know, cooking and eating are just a huge part of my life. I just like love. It's just, it's so basic, but it's so important and makes such a difference. So I'm just really enjoying my life in that respect that, I get to eat all this good, wholesome food and feel good about it. And it's worth the time and the effort and the money. I mean, I'm spending my discretionary income on like food.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's that important. And I can't think of a better place to spend it on.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's such a good point. I do think so many people see obstacles, and like, gosh, if anyone had obstacles to pulling this off, it was you with, yeah, your work schedule and what you do for work and, how that's going to fit into your lifestyle. But I so appreciated that you were so willing to, like, okay, let's brainstorm. Like, how can we make this possible as opposed to just putting up blockages? Well, it's like, well, I just can't do that, because a lot of people do, they don't see an immediate solution. And then immediately there's kind of that rigid mindset around, well, then I can't. But you were very much like, well, what can I do? What could be possible? And you made it work, and now you've made this very sustainable lifestyle for yourself that you can maintain long term.
yeah. And it's like I had a trip in January, February to Hawaii, visit my aunt, and she let me take over the kitchen. And I plan on going to Finland and probably Portugal this summer, next month. And I'm in the process of finding a place to stay where I have access to a kitchen. I'm just gonna, I'll cook my stuff there. Theoretically, you can do this anywhere, right? If you have the space and the resources. So that's what I'm gonna do.
And oh my gosh, I just want to emphasize, going from the kind of history of fatigue, and all the allergies and intolerances and digestive issues that you came to this program with, to talk about you, to hear you talk about like working out 4 days a week, and being able to
Yeah.
do all this traveling. And it's just like, oh, I'm just like glowing hearing just the way you're talking about your life compared to how you were when I first met you.
Yeah. Um, you know, so many things I reacted to over the years, and it seemed like it was never ending. And but with the mindset of like, oh well, we have to fix this. Oh well, we have to fix A, we have to fix D, we have to fix B. Um, that mentality is how I kind of had for all these years, because you talk about this too, that um oh, I have too much of this bacteria in my gut, so we need to take something to kill it. And then, oh, we got too much of this, we got to kill it. And that's how most practitioners deal with this illness. And it doesn't work. I know it doesn't because I've tried. It doesn't work. And so when you talked about, eliminating this stuff for, a long time to make sure that your microbiome gets back into balance, I mean, that just made so much sense to me. To me, that's common sense, you know. Um, and everyone wants a quick fix in our society, unfortunately. And with this illness, there isn't really a quick fix, but at least there's a way. So, and that's more that what you're going to get than from most other practitioners because most of them don't understand this. I even worked with ones that had it themselves too, like you, and they didn't, doesn't mean they're good at helping you get better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that kind of broad, zoomed out approach as opposed to just getting fixated on the details. I think you're
yeah,
referring to. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
So even a lot of MCAS practitioners have that approach. Let's
totally.
kill that. Let's kill this. And I think over time and recently, I was suspicious of that, even though I didn't notice it in my head. It was like, well, I've tried killing this and this and this and this, and it's like, do I want to get back on that bandwagon again? It's like something's off, so I just kind of held off, and so I'm excited for you and your team because I just think you guys can you can do a lot of good because there's a lot of people hurting. I used to spend a lot of time in the Facebook groups, and there's a lot of people hurting, and and but it's hard to get through to them too. They have to be in a certain place in their life and be open-minded to look at options, and that's hard. And the first thing they're thinking is, I can't afford that, or how can I afford that? I don't think I can, or I've tried this and this, and I've already spent all this time and money. So it's a really bad situation. It's sad that we have so much chronic illness in this country, and our medical system doesn't know how to deal with it. Um, and thank God for people like you and your team because you know people wouldn't have any option.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean it's such a tragedy how epidemic some of these issues are becoming without a lot of solid answers. But also sending appreciation to you to sharing your story, showing people that recovery is possible, even if it feels like you've tried everything and been dealing with it for decades. I mean, you're just such a shining example about how there still always are more options. So thank you so much, Karl. Is there any last things that you want to share or emphasize before we wrap up here?
Just don't give up, and follow your heart and your mind, and um, look for options that you can do at the time. And of course, definitely, you know, anybody should look into Jen and her program. So I would highly encourage, anybody with any kind of autoimmune illness to do that, not just MCAS. And the way I look at it is if you know how to help people with MCAS, I think you can basically help anybody with any kind of immune system.
Yeah, it's all connected, right?
It's all
Yeah,
connected. Yeah,
yeah.
it's all the same roots, right? So, um, and with how you uh, practice and your protocols, I mean, I think anybody with any kind of autoimmune illness would get way better working with you. So,
Beautiful. Okay, well, thank you again, Karl. Have a
absolutely.
wonderful time with your baseball this weekend.
Thank you. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it, Jen.